Hi, welcome to Power of the Network. I'm your host, Tim Locker, Vice President of Broadband here at CBM. Today we've got with us Mr. Billy Lao, General Manager and CEO at DILO and DILO Direct Companies. Billy's been in the industry a long time, over 30 years. We've had the opportunity to begin working with him and his team, and we're so blessed to have him here today. So let's get right into it. I'm real excited to see what Billy's got to say. Billy, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you coming in, taking the time to be with us here in person.
Thank you for having me. This is very interesting to me and very fun. I appreciate it.
Well, I know you're no rookie to podcasts, so you shouldn't be too bad for you, right?
No. Hopefully I do all right.
Awesome. So tell me, you spent some time serving in the military.
Correct.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Were you right in out of high school?
Yeah, absolutely. Joke I always say is I was a horrible kid, which is not really a joke, it's the truth. So I needed some conditioning and some structure in my life. And I chose the Army. And I wanted to be an engineer. I always wanted to be an engineer, but I was very interested in mechanics and things like that. So I got into working on turbines.
Oh, cool.
And so I ended up being a M1 Abrams turbine mechanic and got a couple other specialties behind it, and became a 4-year active, and then another 6 years in the Army National Guard for New York. So
okay, yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what skills specifically do you think led you into this industry?
That's good. So a lot of the aspect of what we do in the field as a field guy is having, mechanical abilities, electrical abilities, working on electronics. Hydraulics was the big thing. And on the turbines I worked in had a lot of hydraulics as well. And at the time, a little company called Cogenel also needed a field guy, and my mentor who became my mentor, brought me in and says, man, we could really use your hydraulics knowledge. At the time, they were building breakers that had hydraulic operators, and that's what first brought me in. And then having the electrical and the mechanical abilities behind it helped a lot. So built my first substation 2 weeks into the industry. So
wow. Hit the ground running.
I was there for a year. I was Northern California. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think it's great. You mentioned it kind of straightened you out going into the Army, and I think that's a great path for a lot of young folks, to do.
Absolutely.
What values do you think you learned from that?
So everybody gets a little bit different results from anything you do. And the military can provide you either a great path for a career or a great path for, the type of person you want to really grow up to be. For me, I think it was the fact that I was able to come out with some strong leadership skills, good education, being able to deal with things under pressure.
Yeah.
The typical things you'd hear in the military, but the aspect of it is, I mentioned in many of the things I do about community and things like that, and believe it or not, there is a strong community in the military. There is a friendship behind it, and it's not a lie when people say my brothers, my sisters, my comrades, because you do have that, and that's a big piece of it. I think that's an important value, because at the end in our careers, we want to have relationships. We want to have, the type of contacts that you're going to deal with all come from different backgrounds. So you want to be able to deal with all that. So
yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, in that situation, you literally may have to go to war with them, right?
Exactly. So you got to trust them.
You got to trust them.
And they got to trust you.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street. And so when you have built that relationship, that's hopefully what you've done is you've built a platform of trust that supports a two-way street, like I mentioned before. So, yeah.
And that's an obvious tie into the business world.
Yes.
Those same values.
Yeah, 100%. So they could be our customer, or they can be a supplier, they could be a temporary vendor, or even a contractor you hire, but you have to have the trust when you're saying, hey, I'm giving you this product to go deliver for me, or the customer's entrusting you to deliver something. That's the same thing. You want that valued relationship that has, hey, you're not just delivering this bottle of water and then I disappear. I'm going to make sure that that bottle of water is cold. I'm going to make sure that that bottle of water is wet. I want to make sure that it serves what you need it to do for you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No,
absolutely.
that's awesome. Any specific experiences in the military that led you one way that kind of shaped your career?
Wow.
Or just in general, the whole process?
Yeah, it's hard to say any specific ones. I mean, I mentioned the community aspect of it, the relationships.
Yeah.
I think that really changed a lot. I mean, it wasn't that I was an unsocial kid. That actually was the reason I needed to go to the military, kind of get my act together. But no, I think that had a lot to do with where I am today, and it really. You know, the leadership, of course, you know, going to leadership school and becoming a non-commissioned officer, that all led to, you know, how can I lead a team that I'm responsible for?
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, we all need to get home, or, you know, at the end of the day, we need to deliver on whatever the mission is. And I think that that's a big part of shaping, you know, my personality of who I want it to be. So, yeah.
So that you mentioned leadership school, that was a military class that you went through?
Yeah, primary leadership course is when you go from when you go from being an enlisted man to wanting to become a non-commissioned officer. Part of it is in points. You have to gain so many points, and you have to go to different schools, different classes, and so I had to attend a primary leadership course, and through that. They teach you how to be an army manager, you know, or a military manager in the broader sense. So, you know, they're teaching how to be a leader, how to make a decision. The one thing we would always say is a decision's better than no decision. So, you know, shaping your abilities to react when things have to react when people freeze, for example, you know, on your team. How do you get them motivated? How do you keep them motivated? Recognize when they need to be, you know, taken down a little bit. And by taken down, I mean like taking maybe off the pressure line, you know, just, you know, giving them that break they need and things like that. Extremely important. Yeah. And I think that that's a big piece of what primary leadership courses do for you. You know, there's always the I'm the boss part of it, but the important part is recognize them. You know, it's hard to say you're not their friend because you want to be, but if you take that too far, that could get away from you. So it's showing you what that balance is.
Yeah.
So
how do you not cross that line? Obviously, you know, there's a ranking order, obviously, for a reason,
hierarchy,
but with that also comes a certain level of respect for everybody.
It's knowing the environment, you know, so where do you exercise that? So off the line, you could easily be friends. Let's hang out, let's have some beers, let's have some fun, barbecues, whatever, you know. But when you're on the line, it's knowing that difference. Yeah. And so not only as a leader, but also as the one being led, recognizing that, okay, at this point, we're not out having a couple beers and hanging out at the barbecue joint. We're on a mission or we're on task. And the reason that individual is the leader is because he's chosen or been placed in that position for whatever particular reason, and I have to entrust in the decisions you make. So having both that as the person following, and then as a leader, you know, establishing, you know, at this point we're on the line. I'm now leadership. I'm not the guy you were having beers with the night before.
Respecting those boundaries.
Right, and recognizing when they change. So
no, that's a great example. So obviously that, you know, the leadership school, that's part of your personal growth plan. What other things have you done, you know, for your own personal growth? And then beyond that, what do you do for your team, you know, for their personal growth? What does that look like?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking that. That's good. I love talking about this. So I'll answer it this way. What do I do for my team is you have to allow people to be who they are. You have to recognize what they can do and give them that ability to do it, giving them the resources, the tools, the support, cheering them on. And then recognizing, again, like I mentioned, when it is that you need to pull them back and say, okay, you're taking on too much. So giving them the ability to run, but also being that that limiter, I should say, more, or, you know, to say, okay, now you're pushing yourself beyond your normal boundaries.
Well, and that's one thing that I've come to learn that's difficult. Everybody wants to do so much.
Right.
And there's never any shortage of things to do, right?
Absolutely.
We're all busy, but how do you pick and choose, priority? Because I've always felt like if you try to do everything,
Right.
you're not going to do anything well.
Yeah.
You can't do everything. So how do you prioritize, those to-do things, I guess?
Right.
How do you take that away from
So one thing I learned, and this is almost textbook, and I'm sure you've heard it, is the pro-cons list in a way.
Okay.
And not all the time do you have the ability to, hey, let's go put this on a board and exercise it out. Or so sometimes you just have to make that list in your head and say, okay, what are the pros, what are the cons? How do I make this a priority? How do I make that a non-priority? Is taking that. And again, that's part of being a leader and recognizing that, A, you can do that quickly on the fly when it needs to be. And, making a decision from there. Because like I said, the best thing to do is to make a decision, not to freeze up and not make one, and say, oh, I'm stuck. Which one's the most important one? No, you need to move forward with it. So being able to take the pros and the cons of what, the different things are and deciding what makes it the priority based on those type of aspects.
And obviously being in a sales type of position, I think a lot of us feel productive when we're busy.
Right.
But, at the end of the day, being productive is making money, right?
Right.
And so, we have to make sure we're spending our time on the right things.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so you say that, staying busy is important, but, I mentioned it. I probably do not take, no, not probably. I definitely do not take enough time off.
Yeah.
But also taking time away from being the constantly on the sale. And an important thing to do is recognize that it's not all about always getting the purchase order. Yeah. It's about, developing a relationship, or maybe just establishing your name in there, maybe just getting recognized once. That should be what the priority is at that point, and not think, how do I get this dollar amount in my pocket on the way out the door?
Yeah, that's great. I think too, you're right. It's not about, and I hope I didn't come across the wrong way, but it's not about just making money, obviously, because that's what, salespeople kind of get a bad name of,
right.
The typical used car salesman or whatever, perspective you want to look at. It's not about that. But I guess what I'm talking about is being productive. What's moving it to the next step, right?
And I did understand what you meant, because obviously, at the end of the day, the reason we're here is to meet our responsibilities, which is to create revenue and get the purchase order. So I'm with you on that. But I completely see where you were coming from, number one. And number two is that I think one of the things that we forget is that as something like sales is not, it shouldn't be reduced to what we use the word like, hey, car salesman. I hate when somebody calls us car salesmen because we're pitching you something we do, but it's because we're passionate about it.
Yeah. And we're here to help.
And we're here to help. Exactly.
Yeah, that's the one. You take things personally. When if you can't get in to see somebody, and I remember.
Why didn't he like me?
I've got a great story of. You always deal with the gatekeepers and different things. There was a particular guy that I tried to call on for years, and just couldn't get through the gate.
Right.
And so finally, I realized, well, I'm driving right by the front office, I'm parking across the street. I'm giving them all kinds of time, because they see you coming across the street. So, the manager would run in and hide. And so I finally figured it out. And so the next time I called on them, I actually turned, before, because their office right on Main Street. So I turned, go around the block, and I parked on the side. And when I walked down the sidewalk, I literally ducked and crouched under the window. And I pop in the front door, and the manager's standing there. His eyes are this big. I said, I got you. And this has been a dozen tries,
Right.
All right, let's go talk, and you sit down and talk to the guy for a while, and I mean, he finds out I'm not scary. I found out we got all these things in common, leave with a whole laundry list of things that I can help him with, and so it's frustrating from my side of the coin, from my perspective. It's like, it's frustrating because like I said, we're just here to help.
Right.
But I think too many people go and, probably the same guy, somebody's there wasting his time and time again. So, it's, I think everybody's got to clean it up, not waste their time.
That's right.
And hopefully they can see the value in this. So,
yeah. And I probably have 20 other similar stories to that where all you want to do is just get in there and break the ice with this individual, whoever the contact is. And they're not giving you that chance. And unfortunately, you have to turn to some, different matters and sneak in there and get in the door. Yeah. No, it's tough.
So I guess if there's one message, we're here to help.
Right.
It's
absolutely.
We're not trying to be a burden.
Absolutely.
But, tell me about your team. What are some of the biggest challenges you're facing, just in general currently?
The biggest challenges right now is finding the technical individuals to join the team.
Yeah.
The workforce is an interesting place.
It's a common theme.
Right.
It's
it
a
is.
common theme.
You have this conversation with, I don't care if you're in HVAC and automotive repairs, appliances, you have it, plumbing. The workforce out there, or rather the pool, can be very difficult. So the challenge right now is, we have a history, DILO has a history of, customer service, being reactive, being prompt, and trying to find people that are molded, I'm going to say the same way, or at least have the realm of that mold.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because I know, as we try to find other folks on our bench, I kind of question sometimes how we go about it. Like sometimes I think we're trying to find ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that's not the right.
Man, that's so on.
You are
so correct.
You look at the younger generation, and people will chirp and say bad things about the young kids just don't want to work, but there's a lot of good young folks that do want to work. And, getting to be our age and, kind of a dinosaur in the industry, do you think some of that's actually the pool, or is it our perception and we're trying to seek out the wrong thing?
Man, I think it's both.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. In reflection, you look and you say, I want this person to fill the shoes that I could, that I've either left behind or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one thing. It's being open-minded that there is a different generation, there is a different perspective. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier about, leadership and allowing somebody to come on the team that has a different third-party perspective that they've never, ever seen, that you've never, ever seen, and allowing that to maybe flourish into something pretty positive. And, that's actually what's happened with the team at DILO is when we kind of transitioned, because when you change your CEO and your general management, it's a transition.
Yeah.
It's a big transition because leadership starts up there and, and you're going to have an impact on what decisions you make at this level all the way down to the bottom, right? So transitioning over, what I found is that there were individuals that had a lot of CPU, a lot of energy behind them, and it was somewhat held back. And so what they just needed was to be
let go,
released. And I feel like that's been one of our greatest success over the last 5-6 years, as they got more comfortable with themselves and with what they were doing, that they said, look at this. I can flex my arms. I can do this. I can do that. I can make decisions. And if I make a bad one, I'm not going to be fired.
Yeah.
Because that's a fear, right?
Yeah.
Dude, that was, to make the bad decision, is this the end of my career, or is this the end of my tenure here? Is you got to allow people to make mistakes. And I think that's the one thing my team has is, I like to say they don't make many mistakes, but when they do, they recognize them, and they can reset, and they can recognize when they need help, when they need the leadership to give them a little bit of direction.
I think there's a difference between making a mistake and just frankly making a bad decision.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
Bad decisions are usually easier to deal with.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. So when somebody on the team does make a mistake or something goes wrong. How do you balance that? Keep people accountable, but also not, react, kind of in a punitive fashion.
Well, I mean, you balance it through communication. If you're not setting expectations clearly, you're not going to get a balance. There's going to be that, I must be doing everything right. I'm not hearing that I'm doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Or if you're too hard and constantly like, man, I keep doing everything wrong, I'm never doing anything right. So having, accountability should be through starts with good communication.
Yeah.
There are times where you're just going to have to put your foot down, and you're going to have to be that tough management approach and say, hey, at this point, now it's not only impacting you, it's impacting the team, or it's impacting the customer, it's impacting the business. That's when you start looking at a tougher approach. But I feel like if you do not have communication of expectations set properly, accountability is worthless. They need to understand, and you need to also understand.
They have to know what they're accountable to, right?
Yeah. But you also got to understand the other side. So when somebody's doing something wrong, right? Are they doing it wrong because A, they don't know, or B, they just don't care, or is something going on at home? Is something beyond work happening to them that they're just struggling with something? And so that's why I'm talking about expectations. Expect that person to be a human being.
Yeah.
Expect that person to have a life outside of work, and that they could be also impacted outside of work. And unfortunately, we try not to, but we bring it with us to the office or to the shop.
Well, there's no way not to, frankly.
Right. I mean, how do you draw that line, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
No, I think it's important to understand too, there's a reason that your people come to work, right? And everybody's reason is different.
Right.
They all do it for, a different reason. So, it can be a challenge, but I think it's also important to understand that reason for, why is Billy doing what he's doing? There's a reason behind everything. So it's you spend more time at work than you do anything else. So it's obviously a big part of your personal life as well. So
you just said something very important too. So we talk about accountability of our employees, but you also have to be accountable. And something I tell my team is like, you need to hold me just as accountable.
Yeah.
If I'm not doing right by you, if I'm not giving you those tools, or if I'm not even hearing you, don't be afraid to hold me accountable.
Yeah.
There's a way to do it. There is. I mean, you got to respect the hierarchy. And being from a military background, I'm very big about that. But there should be no shame in an employee, a team member coming to you and saying, hey, Billy, the way you're dealing with this is not the way I agree, or, you're not thinking this through or something. You got to be also available to be held accountable just as much.
Yeah. No, that's a great point too. And how you respond to that is obviously a direct impact of, does this person want to work for you or don't they? Right.
And I've had those conversations where I'm like, I'm making this decision based on a broader, bigger business level decision that I'm sorry, I may not be able to share all the details with you about, but that's where my decision comes from. And this is where you kind of have to get a little harsh and say, if you don't understand that and you're not ready to get in line with that, then maybe this isn't the place that fits best for you, Yeah,
and sometimes that's a tough position, but you mentioned communication a couple of times. What I've seen over the years too, I think is important is, sharing that vision, on the front side.
Right.
'Cause sometimes, your employees don't necessarily always understand. And so if you don't, it's always easy to second guess somebody else's decision, right?
Yes.
But if you don't understand the why behind that decision, then it's a lot easier to second guess that, right? So if you know the why of that vision, then it's easier to support. So it's so critical that you share that on the front side and not allow those questions to come up. So then later, it's like, oh, well, if I'd have known that, maybe, behave differently or whatever. So,
I mean, I'll give you a really quick example. I ran a brewery for a while, and I had an employee that didn't understand that we would have to lock our point of sale systems because simply, I said, I want everything to be locked. So when you're done with your point of sale transaction, it locks. It takes too many seconds of my life to put in the PIN. I just want to serve the customer. Absolutely, absolutely. But here's the problem. All it takes is you to walk away and somebody to spin that point of sale thing around and type in some numbers, erase their ticket. That's all it takes. And unfortunately, we live in a world where security is a thing, right? But the gentleman that worked for me at the time was just adamant that his way or no way. And you just get to a point where you're like, listen, at this point, I have now made a decision, and you neither have to accept it, you don't have to like it, but you have to accept it. And if you don't accept it, that's okay, but there's the door. You know, that's just where you get to.
Yeah. So. You hate to have to get to that point, but at some point, when
you get pushed enough.
Now, do you think in that scenario you shared that vision or the reason on the front end?
No, actually, I caught myself afterwards and realized I had missed it.
Yeah.
But when I finally did share it, it then just, by that time, he in his head had it fixed.
It had gone too far,
Yeah, he had his head that this is the way I want to do it. And I'm like, well, you know, I'm the guy in charge of this, and I'm the guy who's making decisions.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. I mean, you got to recognize, where did I fall short? And I do that. I that is one of my things. Is like, sometimes a little too late, but I do go back and look and say, where did I fall short?
Yeah.
And I start throwing it back into my head and, you know, if you will, swim backwards or bike backwards, however you want to say it. Just think back. Where could I have done a better job? I'm not going to fix it now, but I can fix it for the future.
Well, and just your terminology there, you know, where did I go wrong? That just shows that accountability.
Right.
You know.
Right. You always have to look at yourself first. And even with, I don't know how to properly say it, but even when it is maybe not 100% on you, there's still a point. Where did I not understand that individual was not going to accept that?
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, I brought him onto the team. I brought him on to be part of this organization, and he or she didn't believe in what we're doing. You know, what happened there? So it could go, you know, farther back than you realize. Not at that very moment when you're dealing with the situation.
What makes CBM different? First and foremost, I believe it's our ESOP. Employee owners make different decisions. They value our customers, they value our manufacturers, and we're going to do what's right for each of them. So they behave in a different manner. You know, we represent different lines in commercial industrial market, utility market, and also the communication market. These markets are overlapping more and more every day, and the ESOP and the way we're structured actually allows us to be more flexible and cover those markets and put our expertise where they need to be. So if you're looking for a manufacturer's rep with high quality sales staff, good relationships, look no further than CBM. You can find us right here at cbmrep.com. So, you know, kind of continuing on the hiring theme, you know, we noticed and respected, quite frankly, you know, as you were interviewing CBM, you know, to work for you, you know, it was like a 1.5 day interview process, right?
Right.
And that's important to us. It shows us a couple things, you know, that obviously, A, you're vested in us, but B, the willingness to go that deep to make sure it's a right fit.
Right.
I mean, I really have a lot of respect for that. So talk about that process, you know, what it does for not just us being your rep, but also for you and your team.
All right. No, thank you for recognizing that. So it goes back to relationships, right? I mean, the goal is that we're going to be in a very long-term relationship. That's what it is. Piece of paper signed or not, it's about a relationship. And you're going to be carrying a flag that represents us with your flag that represents you. So, and I can't take all the credit for how we do this. I got to say that Corey, our sales director, he's the one that really took this and has done a wonderful job of it. We had to have some lessons learned. And the reason we do this, the reason we take a 1.5 days, the reason we have you look at our, you know, meet our team and do that is because we want you to be comfortable just as much as we need to be comfortable with you.
Yeah.
You know, we're not hiring you, we're making a relationship.
Yeah.
We're creating a relationship that, like I mentioned, it needs to go for a very long time.
Yeah.
And there's things that we're going to expectations that we're not going to be with you at every customer visit. So we need to know that, hey, they were at our service center, or they've attended our seminar, or they've talked to Corey or Danielle or Billy or any of the team members and know what our goal and mission are. And so when they speak of DILO, they're speaking how we would speak.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, is why we put so much emphasis into it. When we've done it in the past, it was a handshake, you sign here, hey, let's do a little lunch and learn, or come through our facility and then see you later. And, in some cases it worked fine, but in some it didn't.
Yeah.
And so this approach has given us the ability to not only give us the comfort of what we needed, but also give the comfort to those who we're coming into this relationship with.
And touch on those different groups too, because I know we interviewed and met with all the different sectors of the company.
Right.
And so, that also kind of gives them a little buy-in as well, right?
Absolutely. We have all our ops managers sign in on this. So all the way from our, we have our calibration department, we have our operations that is from DILO company, that's the team that's building the new equipment going out the door. We have our DILO direct operations managers signing in as well, because they're involved in providing the service, the after sales manager who's providing warranty and non-warranty technical support. We have our production manager. And then, myself, I'm vested too. I'm entrusting not only my team, but I'm entrusting the individuals we're coming into a relationship with to support us. So all these different departments have such a positive and can have a negative impact if they're not on board, but a positive impact on getting this to be a good result.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about, what DILO does.
Right. Cool.
Educate us on SF6. What is SF6?
Sulfur hexafluoride, SF6. So it's an insulating medium, man-made. It's used in the power industry. Normally, you find it in high voltage electrical or medium voltage electrical equipment as an insulator of electricity. It's an arc quencher. So when the circuit breaker opens, it quenches the arc. That's the reader's guide version of what it does. What we do is unfortunately, SF6 has been found to be the worst greenhouse gas in the world. In 1999, the Kyoto Protocol, many countries except for the US signed on to this Kyoto Protocol and said, hey, we need to make sure that we control the emissions of this gas, because 1 pound is the equivalent of 25,000 CO2 emissions.
Okay, so let's clarify real quick, though. You don't make and provide and sell that gas.
We do not make and provide and sell that gas. DILO globally manufactures equipment that handles it, captures it to reduce emissions into the atmosphere.
Okay.
That's great. I'm glad you helped me clarify.
I don't want to give people the wrong impression.
No, we don't deliver.
This is the worst product.
This is the worst product in the world. No, I'm glad you said that. Absolutely. No, we're the other way around. I mean, first of all, it's the worst product from a global warming potential, but it's the best product that exists from a power industry. Yeah. It's been around since in its current use. It got very powerful in the 70s and 80s when SF6 started replacing oil breakers little by little.
Okay.
But it's the best gas, and now there are alternatives that exist, but they're not as good as SF6, but they're getting close. So what we manufacture is the handling equipment. We analyze the gas. We can capture it, recycle it. We're very big into the recycling process of it, reconditioning it, getting it back into the industry for reuse, constant reuse, 100% recyclable.
Okay.
So there's no need to throw it away. Let's do the other thing with it. Let's not have to make more and more. Let's use what we have. So
your tools actually will reclaim it out of whatever product that's in a breaker,
high voltage circuit breaker, transformer, gas insulated equipment.
Reclaim it, and then you take that gas and clean it,
scrub it clean.
How does that work?
So we use filtration And if we're just recycling, we'll use filtration where we're using an aluminum oxide filters and particle filters to remove byproduct and moisture. And then we can just reintroduce it back into the gas insulated equipment. Or if its purity is low, then we put it through a cryogenic process. We improve its purity, and now it's available to be reintroduced into the supply stream.
Okay.
Right there with virgin SF6.
Okay. So what's the value for the utility then? So.
Oh man, there's financial, absolutely, number one. But number two is it lowers your global carbon footprint.
Okay.
So when you purchase virgin SF6 gas, approximately for every 100 pounds, you're allowing about 8 or more pounds of emissions into the atmosphere of CO2.
So about an 8%.
Yeah.
Right off the top.
But it's not perfect either. It could be worse.
Okay.
It could be worse. When you recycle and recondition, you're talking about 0.5% potential emission when you follow the correct process.
Yeah.
And that's an important part. But yeah, you're talking about a massive reduction in CO2 emissions. So that's the value, is lowering your carbon footprint. And if you're
that's
working,
regulated too, right? So these
100%. So SF6 is a regulated gas. Like I mentioned, the United States did not sign into the Kyoto Protocol or the Paris Protocol, but what the EPA did is they absorbed, or rather took on, a lot of the same regulation requirements that the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Accord named.
So there's a process. So if you have this in your network, you're testing it, reporting it.
You're accounting for it. So you have to account for your emissions. How much do you have in cylinders or installed? How much you've emitted throughout your year to the atmosphere.
Okay, so it's critical to these companies that
it is, and we need it. We need SF6 right now. We need an insulating medium.
Yeah.
There are many great alternatives coming up. They haven't all reached what SF6 could do by itself. There is a process to some of these alternatives. They're mixtures, or they're combined with vacuum and they can only insulate and not extinguish. So there's a lot of different combinations out there.
So I'm assuming, I don't know a lot about breakers and how they operate, but I'm assuming like an air insulated product, just the longevity of the unit is not as good, or what's the difference between an alternate product?
An alternative. Well, the difference right now is just it's capabilities, right? So we're kind of on the alternatives. We haven't breached beyond 245 kV, 63K, which is the medium of the high voltage, because we can go up to 550, we can go up to 765 kV in transmission lines.
Okay.
But let's just say 550 is the target. We've gotten to about 245, maybe about 40 KA, but we haven't met 550 yet because we need more space, or we need more. There's a lot more science behind it, and so it hasn't reached that yet. There's temperature requirements that SF6 meets easily, where the alternatives doesn't.
Okay.
And so there's a couple of little limitations there. They're not massive, but they're enough to, not make it the perfect exact replacement yet.
Okay.
And we support it. DILO supports it. We actually handle mixtures, and we can create mixtures. We're already in that sector, the alternatives.
Does that require the same testing protocols?
Very, very much so. Very much so. Especially with the mixtures that have fluorinated gases with a global warming potential. Yes.
Okay. Interesting. So how much of a role does, technology play in what you guys do?
A big role. So technologies, it's kind of done a ramp, right? So for a while there was a very slow ramp, and now we're in a peak. So the more technology that's coming out, the more science that's being done, the better and closer we get to replacing SF6. I don't think in my lifetime SF6 will be 100% replaced, but we'll be darn close. And that's a good thing, because we are about, DILO in a way, we're an environmental company. We want to recover 100%. We want to reduce emissions. We want to make it as safe and as reusable as possible, so we're not having a negative impact. We're stewards of the environment. All of us are in this industry. So
now, does that looking at that long term, if our goal is to eliminate the SF6 or totally transfer away from it,
right?
What does that look like for the future of the company? Are you kind of cutting yourself in the foot a little bit, or?
No, well, like I mentioned, so we call that green line. Anything that's non-SF6 is green line in the insulating space. No, not at all. It's opening different doors, other opportunities for us. We're also a blue line business, so we're looking at xenon. We're looking at hydrogen, helium as another. Again, we don't supply the gases, but as equipment, recovery, emissions, and by leak detection, hydrogen leaking is a bad thing.
Yeah.
So we are already in that sector as well, looking to see how we can get more involved. Be again a leader in that part of the world as well.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's go back to talking about your team. One of the individuals that we work with, Danielle, I understand she's one of your success stories.
She is. She's great.
Tell me more about her.
Absolutely. So Danielle came into the office. She started in our front office and essentially really proved to be very important to us, doing what she had to do at front office. She essentially worked her way into what we call back office, supporting sales with like inside sales, doing what we needed from the backside of marketing, things like that. And then eventually into what she now holds as a regional sales manager, where she has her own territory that she covers. And what, to me, her success is the fact that where she started and where she's at. I'll tell you this story, which is where I knew that Danielle was a superstar. So we're at a seminar, an industry event, if you will, and two gentlemen walk up to her and start asking her questions, and there's a massive language barrier. And I'm standing off to the side, and I'm going, okay, should I go interject and help her out? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to watch and see. And if she needs me, she'll wave me over.
Yeah.
She starts talking to them, and they're asking her very, very technical pointing questions about her analyzer at the time, the version that we were coming out with. And she just held her own. And I purposely overheard everything she was saying to make sure if she needed my help, but I acted like I wasn't there. And man, she just so delivered. And I was so impressed. I mean, my face lights up right now. I actually feel tingles in the back of my head right now because it was such an impressive aspect of what I knew Danielle was going to be for us. And she has now grown into this wonderful regional salesman. She does my trainings for me. Like I set up trainings I have a very small region just because it keeps me in check. But she does them for me. And now I'm to the point where like, I don't want anybody else to do them. Like she does such a wonderful job of training. And a lot of it has to do with, part of it was her initial innocence behind it, where, it's somebody from the outside, didn't understand what SF6 was, didn't really know. I mean, she didn't go to school to be a mechanic or an engineer or nothing, but she had such a tenacity to learn, a desire to know more, and she just pushed it to the point where now she is truly a superstar for us. And I'm very, very proud of her. And I can't see why Danielle can't even continue to grow more. I just don't. There's no barriers for her. I just don't see it that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
And I feel the same about a lot of my team, but she's definitely a superstar, and I really enjoy watching where she's come from and where she's at. Yeah. So
that's awesome. So tell me a little bit too. DILO is not just product, but services as well.
Services as well, yeah.
I guess explain a little bit about what we can offer there in terms of services and frankly, what the customer can expect.
Right. No, absolutely. So we're built around the customer service aspect. So when we built DILO Direct, which is a separate entity of our DILO company organization, DILO Direct was built around supporting our customers with our product. So maintaining that equipment, because of the fact that emissions and the impact on the environment is so important, you have to have a good running device. So the value in turning to DILO Direct to support your equipment is, one, we're going to keep it up to speed. We're going to make sure it runs. There's equipment out there that's 15, 20 years old that runs just as good as if it was day one for it.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. The other part of it is that gas management, with the regulations changing, there's massive changes coming in, both at federal and at certain states. New York is looking at changes. Massachusetts, California made a big change in theirs just a couple years ago. There's like 26 other states looking at what California has done and seeing if they can implement, if not all, at least part of what California has done. The EPA is looking at what California has done, and they're changing their regulation that actually borrows much of the regulation wording from California. So DILO Direct can provide that inventory management to help you report, to help you manage that inventory, because regulations is not an easy thing
I'm sure it's difficult
to navigate
through.
And so we're positioned in a way where we're part of so many different associations or so many different, we're in IEEE, IEC, ASTM. I get to chair our SF6 Gas and Alternatives Coalition under NEMA. And so we're very much in tune with what's going on. And DILO Direct, as a result, can use that and leverage that when it comes to providing service on how to manage your gas in the field. So that's a big piece. I mean, we could talk about the fact that we fix your cards. We could, yes, absolutely. That's definitely super important, and we're very proud and very happy that we can do that. But it's what else outside of that, it's simple things, just like understanding your cylinder inventory. You'd be surprised. Having cylinders come from different suppliers or with your breakers, to me, is a mistake. And we've proven that because things get lost, and you're paying a lot more. OEMs, circuit breaker manufacturers, are not in the gas supply business. They're in the circuit breaker business, or in their transformer is. They're selling you a gas insulated piece of equipment. When they sell you gas, you're paying for that because that's not their business. You're paying more than you would pay. So have it tunnel in through one place, have it tunnel out through one place. It'll be a lot easier to manage, and we can provide you that.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I'd be remiss if we didn't mention one of your company taglines, don't be a gas hole.
That's right.
Who come up with that? Tell me
so
about
the
that.
marketing team, and I have to give Corey and Lena the credit. They came up with that, and we started exercising it a few years ago. And the whole point of it is exactly what we're talking about, is don't be a gas emitter. Don't allow yourself or your company, your organization, your practices, your processes to be an impact on the environment.
Yeah.
And so we were trying to find something that would really capture the essence of what we were saying.
Well, it's catchy.
And, hey, don't be a gas hole. It's that easy. If you allow gas to escape, you're being a gas hole. And we can help you not be a gas hole. So that's it.
That's awesome.
Make sure it's GAS, right?
Let's circle back a little bit here. Earlier you kind of briefly touched on, one of your mentors, but you didn't really get into too much detail. Tell me about, who that was and what you learned from him.
Absolutely. So I came out of the military, got hired by Cogenel, Alstom, GC Alstom at the time. And a gentleman by the name of Pat Peak was actually one of my dad's best friends. And he gave me the opportunity. And at the time, I was young, just kind of like, I hadn't made any true decisions on whether I wanted to go back to college or university or what I was trying to do. And he took me under his wing and said, hey, listen, you right now, by working for me, are my best and my worst technician, because you're the only one. So I took that, and he said, listen, he goes, I'm going to give you everything I can give you from my knowledge that was given to me by the people before me. And you can do whatever you want with it. You can take it and make it, success for you, or you can just throw it away. So that's on you. Yeah. But this is what I'm going to do for you. And he did. He truly kind of grasped who I was. He understood me. Well, he obviously knew me. He saw me grow up being a friend of the family, number one, which, I love him to death. I just recently got a hold of him again. He actually got a hold of me, and we talked. He's now in Australia, retired, living life and enjoying it.
Yeah.
But he provided me a number of things. One, a number of great sayings. He's given me everything. And one of them was about management. He says, look, they come and they go, and then we're still here. So, and he was right. He's like, I've gone through that, and him take me out to the field, show me what being a field guy is, living. It's a lifestyle. When you're a field technician, it's a different lifestyle, So you got to be able to be on the road, be by yourself, work with a team, sometimes not.
Yeah.
This is pre-cell phones, those days where I would run back to the room and study on a book and then call him, and he would give me, listen, don't read the book like that. Let me just, tell you how to do that. And so he guided me through a lot of my technical, education as far as getting into this industry. I do have other mentors that came as well. When I decided to go back to school and do that, it was great to go back to school, but honestly, the university from life is, really the one that to me was the one that gave me the most. And having a guy by the name of Clark Anderson and Bernard Dumont, those guys as managers had their own styles.
Yeah.
And so they all kind of also were mentors in my life. But Pat was definitely the one that gave me my career. And I truly feel like whatever you want to measure that I have for success today was because Pat created this base and platform for me, and then gave me a number of springboards, and it was for me to choose the springboards that I wanted to jump on. And he's the man. He's the one that did it for me. So
that's great.
Very, very grateful to him.
Awesome.
So,
awesome. Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming in and visiting with us. I know you're a busy guy, and it means a lot for us to have you in.
And it means a lot to me. Our relationship, like I've mentioned in the past, is very important. You guys are an extension of us, and we are an extension of you as well. We have to serve the same goals, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. No, we appreciate you, and having a manufacturer that understands that relationship, and it's a two-way street. It's truly it's like a marriage. You bring in two families.
That's
together, right? And we really appreciate your perspective on that too. And
cool.
And it's
Awesome.
been great. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Cheers.
Thanks again for joining us, and a special thanks to Billy for taking his time to come in and be with us today. Hopefully you all enjoyed that. Please like, share, comment. We'd like to know what you'd like to see next coming up on the show. And remember, if you need help on a project from an expertise team, or if you're looking for representation from a great company like CBM, please reach out to us here at cbmrep.com. And until next time, thank you for joining us on Power the Network.